Good to see everybody out this morning. Ralph's, Ronnie's in Las Vegas. Last account, anybody heard he was at the slot machines? No, I'll take that back. I just made that up. And Ralph is taking an early nap. We don't know. Running late. Matthew's got some ducks laid out for later. We're gonna roast. How many did you get this morning, Matthew?
0 this morning.
Well, chicken does all right.
I'll take that.
Get us some chicken.
Yeah.
Good to see everybody out this morning. Beautiful day. We got out there. Good place to be this morning. Come out to hear the word, fellowship with one another. Let's start service with the word of prayer this morning. Since he got here late, he can open us up with the word of prayer.
Heavenly sweet Jesus, Lord, we just thank you on the end of opportunity in your house, Lord. We ask you, Lord, to bless this service, that each and every one's here. Lord, most importantly, Lord, just bless the ones that can't be here. In Jesus' name, we thank you, ask.
Amen. I got a big one when you think that's bad. You want to trade me places? Come on. Any birthdays? You get the birthdays? No. Any birthdays this week? Any? Come on.
Happy birthday one? No, don't have any. You don't have any.
No birthday? I had a birthday. I forgot.
You did, you did. Stop feeling there this morning.
I'm all right.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, God bless you. Happy birthday to you.
Okay. We get the Low Christian Baptist Community Outreach, January 2019 report. Total spent for January was $175. Gave out 69 food baskets. Total people paid from those baskets $195. Cost each person was 90 cents. I thank everybody that worked in that. Jackie did a great job on that. We appreciate it. We have the usher's note. We'll take up offering.
Most gracious Heavenly Father, once again we're thankful that you blessed us this good day. We're thankful, Father, for each one that's out to worship. Father, we just want to thank you for everything you do for us. Lord, I ask your blessings on this offering we're about to receive. We pray, Lord, that you bless it to do your kingdom and to the glory
Just enough to do cleaning.
Here's Alice.
He'll be back.
Here's Alice.
song, we'll fellowship one another together. For
She don't work.
You got that left on face?
Thank you for the appreciate it.
Job in there for a while. Can't do much.
I brought a paper bag help. Yes, I did. It got us down here.
That means you gotta be like me.
They lost.
How you doing? Doing all right.
I think he's gonna be a politician. Don't face me. How are you? What's happening? We'll find out later.
Good, how you doing? I got you.
Okay.
Spread the word on that.
580 something.
I don't know.
Could sworn to have someone or something like fruit trade out.
Ralphie, I'll try to get through this. Remember, our granddaughter, Adrienne, and her husband Mark, their little baby came into the world. She weighed 1.5 pounds out. I decided to take her right home. Just pray for that, the kids. And comfort for their heart.
Anyone else?
Kimmy, that's fine. You don't know what's the matter. Check the matter.
Anyone else?
So that now we're very pleased. And so that speaks out. That there's also a desire. And my brother-in-law, George, the doctor was telling us that he may have cancer on his lungs. And did biopsy. Friday. Kevin lost a couple of friends this week to Paddington violence. He lost a man that was 62 years old and his 19-year-old son. And he just came in shocked. They tried to help a young lady that was in distress, and this man pulled it and just shot him. So, they were both Mennonite. Just remember that family.
Member Charlie. Again, if they do, we'll do.
Remember Dad, he wasn't feeling good this morning.
Anyone else?
Hell was sick this morning, been very here. Not sure what's going on.
Anyone else?
Brother Reed, American Med.
You remember Wilbur?
Ralph, I have a patient, he's only 36 years old, he recently had a liver transplant. He's having some complications and they think he may be trying to reject his liver, so just remember him and his family.
Anyone else? Remember one other this morning, where all those nurses from the hospital, all those, all of them down to the week, where all those died of cancer this morning. Remember all the shut-ins, and those who want to be here in Kansas, take from those who need to be here in Lawrence. Anyone else will go to work prayer?
I've got a couple prayer.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of people I would like to request prayer for, a niece and a nephew.
Anyone else? And Brother Larry said, I know we all have lost loved ones and friends, like Steve is saved, let's show hands. Anyone else will go to Lord in prayer? One act for Patrick.
I pray that everybody would Lord, Italians and Mexicans, today, all your many blessings, Lord, good health,
So you made it, though. Thank you all for all the work. Precious.
Many times I'm cried and tested as I journey day by day. Oft I meet with disappointment and there's trouble in my way. But I have the sweet assurance that my soul the Lord will lead, and in Him there is strength for every need. Oh, His grace is sufficient for me, and His love is abundant and free. It's free. Oh, what joy it is to know, just to know, yes I know, that His grace is sufficient for me. When the devil brings confusion and you don't know what to do, it is then you turn to Jesus, and He always sees you through. Then His precious change to victory, every shout will melt away, and in Him there is strength for every day. Oh, His grace is sufficient for me, and His love is abundant and free. And what joy it is to know, just to know, yes I know, that His grace is sufficient for me. Paul said it was, and I believe it. I thank the Lord. Yes, thank you, Jesus. He just gets better every day. The older I get, the better He gets. I love all you people here in this church. I've got so used to you. You're like my brothers and sisters. That's what you are.
Amen. Who wants to follow that?
The Lord is so good. He's treated me so good all my life. Me and Kurt said sometime tonight, try to talk about how good He's been. There's no way we can even scratch the surface. Wonderful.
Anyone else this morning? Song or testimony?
I just want to thank everybody for all the prayers. Ron was really worried about this surgery, that he wouldn't make it out of it, but he did, and I just want to thank everybody because I know those prayers helped. I could feel them, and we really appreciate it.
Amen. Anyone else this morning? Song or testimony? Anyone have a testimony or funds for me?
I want to thank everyone that helped with the kids for the bowling family. We had a good size turnout, but we had plenty of food, plenty of help. Sometimes when something like this happens, it's unpredictable. You just don't know how things are going to go. But it was wonderful. The family, they said over and over again, thanking the church for what they had done. And just really, really well. This is going to be really, really hard for her. The kids, they have other lives. They have other things going on in their lives. But that wasn't enough. So, it's really, really special.
people, there's some here this morning that have thought about it, but yet they're still holding off. But I just like to urge them that if they're in this case, to go ahead with it and take Christ into their life, and they'll not regret it. I just want to thank you for this church we have here. Thank you for all the brothers and sisters. And I just want to thank you for everything you do for me. I'm just thankful. You know, a lot of times we just take a lot of things for granted. And yet, he is the supplier of all of that. Whatever it is, he's there. So I just want to thank you for it all. Praise you.
Anyone else this morning? Song or testimony? All right. Children's Church. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add before I call the preacher? Come on, brother.
Good morning. Be in John chapter 12 this morning. John chapter 12. John chapter 12 this morning. God, Jesus, we want to pick up his story here in John, and this is 6 days before the Passover. It tells us there in verse 1, but just to kind of put the tone where he's at. In chapter 11, we see Jesus raise Lazarus from the dead, and Mary and Martha are there. And in chapter 11, he raised Lazarus from the dead and told him to come forth, and brought back to life. And in chapter 11 is one of the last recorded miracles that we see Jesus do. And not any word arguably here is the most important. All of Jesus' miracles were important, but his final one, and as we see before he goes, one of his final ones before he goes there, we don't know all that he did. But Jesus, after that, the Jews didn't like it very much. So Jesus took off and invaded, as he had to do quite often from his own people. And he went to a place called Ephraim, and he continued to minister there with his disciples. And then the Jewish Passover came upon them, and they went back to Bethany. Bethany was a special place to Jesus. It was a place where he had been a long time. It's where he had been friends. It's where his ministry, or really when he started to minister and perform the miracles that he had, where his ministry took off, and where it's kind of befitting that it would draw to a close there also. But Jesus is sitting there 6 days before the Passover, and let's get into the Word, and Word will set it up far better than I could. It says, chapter 12, verse 1 says, Then Jesus, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany where Lazarus which had been dead, whom he raised from the dead. There made him a supper, and Martha served, but Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with him. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. Then saith one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him, Why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence, and given to the poor? This he said, not having cared for the poor, but because he was a thief, and had the bag, and bare what was put therein. Then said Jesus, Let her alone. Against the day of my burying hath she kept this. For the poor always ye have with you, but me ye have not always. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father God in heaven, we thank you, dear Lord, for this day. We thank you, dear Father, for those that are here. Lord, we just ask as we go to your word that you help us, dear Lord, to give it reverence with our hearts and minds. Dear Lord, just use me and speak through me, dear Father, it's your will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So Jesus there's an account like this in each of the Gospels, and there's a lot of theologians, people tell you that there's two separate accounts, but they're very similar. One talks about anointing the head, but this one is talking about Mary anointing the feet. And we want to just stick with this one. So you think, hey, I've read that somewhere else. You may have read something very similar in another gospel, but we're going to focus on this one this morning. In one of the Gospels, it talks about Jesus sitting at the table of a leper, and that's another story that's similar to this. But in any case, they prepared dinner for Jesus, and Jesus was there, and he's with Lazarus. Now, imagine that. Put that in your mind, if you will, that Jesus is sitting at a dinner table with a man that once was dead. I listened the other day, and it's kind of my heart's been on this week, but I listened to Mark Lowry the other morning on the way to school. I needed to laugh, and he's pretty good, and to give you one. And he talked about, can you imagine if you were Lazarus, to be with the Father, and then Jesus says, come out of the tomb, and then he starts walking across the stage and going, but wait. He calls him back down. We don't know what Lazarus saw there. There's no scripture to tell us what he saw there. But anyhow, Jesus is sitting in the presence of someone who was dead, and he raised him from the dead. Because Jesus has that power. Jesus has the power to make dead men come alive. Jesus has the power. Let me say that again. Jesus has the power to make dead men come alive. Jesus has the power to heal the sick. Jesus has the power to make the blind see. Jesus has the power to do anything he wants to do. If we will humble ourselves and ask, the Bible tells us if we will humble ourselves and ask, he will grant that to us if it's his will. But we have to follow after Jesus' command. Jesus asked the Father himself, if it be your will, let this cup pass from me. We don't know what God's plan is for our life. We have no idea. We don't know what God's plan is for those around us. But we know that God is capable of doing all things. And through Jesus Christ, we are capable of doing all things. Jesus is sitting there with the man that he had raised from the dead, and Martha, and I told you before, I don't remember if it was this past Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving before, I don't really remember, but I told you to be more of a Mary and not a Martha. Well, today, to kind of along those same lines, is be more of a Mary and not a Judas. And we're not going to talk about Judas's betrayal, but just the thing that Judas does here in the end. Mary had a spikenard that says a pint, and in translations it'll have a pint, and it'll have, so you can get a kind of a visual of what she had. And this was a really expensive perfume. And the other stories and parables or stories in the other testaments are about the same thing, but this is really expensive stuff. And she takes it. Mary took a pound of ointment, a spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. There's not a day that goes by that we shouldn't be doing the exact same thing. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. There weren't any muck boots back then. There weren't any Nikes or Air Jordans. There weren't any Red Wings or Wolverines or Adidas or what have you. They wore sandals. Everywhere they went, they wore sandals. And the feet would be the dirtiest part of the body. If you would travel from one city to the next, the feet would be the dirtiest part of the body. Now the feet, and we have a foot washing service here every so often, and the feet is something that nobody really likes, right? I mean, how many of you in here really enjoy feet? And don't raise your hand because I don't want to know. But we think feet, even in our day and time, even with the footwear that we have, right? I got some holy shoes on. I like them. Karen and Mom have tried to get me to get rid of them for a while, but I like them. Even with the shoes that we have and the socks that we have, if you go out and you walk all day, if David goes to the plant and comes home and Frank says takes his dirty boots off, they're not the sweetest smelling things in the world, are they, Dave? No. Are they, Donnie? No. Go out and work cattle, Bobby or Jackie, or they're not new. I'm inside all day in a climate-controlled room. And it's still nothing that anybody wants to deal with. The feet. He's sitting at the dinner table and Mary humbles herself at the feet of Jesus. Humbles herself at the feet of Jesus. Well, you're sitting there thinking, well, if Jesus were in my presence, I would do that too. Why is he not in your presence? That's my question to you. If Jesus is not in your presence, it's not because he's not there physically. He's not going to be there physically. He's at home. He's home. He's preparing a place for me. He's already prepared a place for me. He's preparing a place for you. And all the converts that we still have, that the church is still growing daily. This assembly may not have seen a soul saved for a while, but the church is growing daily. Daily. He's at home preparing those places. Why? Because he told me he was going to go. That's where he's at, and he's not going to be with you in the flesh. Why is he not with you in the spirit? That's the question you should ask. And if you are a Christian, if you are a professed Christian who has hit their knees and accepted Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, and you can say, no, he's not in my presence, that's a scary thing. He's with me everywhere I go. Everywhere I go. Now, how am I going to humble myself to take this and anoint his feet? We'll get to that in a minute. She goes a step further. She takes this expensive bottle of perfume, and most places would tell you this would be about a year's wage. This would be about a year's wage for her. A year's salary in a bottle. And she pours it all on the feet of Jesus. And then she goes a step further and wiped his feet with her hair. You ever have something that's dusty and dirty and you take it off outside to the water hose? Well, if you only had a bottle of water, you can't always get it clean. Let's put this picture in our mind for just a second. Jesus' feet were dirty. And this is a pint of oil. Now, if you take that and you have dirty feet, maybe sandy feet, some of you have been to the beach, you stand at the little thing where you come in off the beach and you pull a handle and you get the sand off of you. You're there for a while, right? To get it all off. One little pint of that perfume is not going to get all the dirt off Jesus' feet. You got to wipe the rest away. A lot of it would collect, and you got to wipe the rest away. She didn't get a towel. She didn't use her dress. She used her hair. Now, in this case, a woman's hair, in this culture, a woman's hair is considered most precious to her. Her hair. She used one of the most expensive things that she had to wash the dirty feet of Jesus, and then she used her hair, not a rag, not her dress, not whatever she had laying around. She used her hair to wipe the dirt away. To honor him. To honor him. Judas is there, and Judas has already been through his ordeal, and he's got the money there in his pocket. Why did you do that? You could have sold that ointment and given it to the poor. Jesus said, leave her alone. Jesus said, leave her alone. You're always going to have the poor, but I'm not going to be around forever. And this is what he was talking about himself in the flesh. You and I will always have Jesus around. Not in the flesh, but in the spirit. If we ask him. If we ask him. Judas is there, and he's picking on something. He's picking on her salvation. Let me tell you something. If you let people beat you out of your salvation, if you let people beat you out of your service to Christ, if you let people beat you out of the little things that you're willing to give for the Lord, then you're not doing it for Him, you're doing it for you. If you are convicted to do something for Jesus Christ, do it with all your heart. Don't let anybody tell you any different. It doesn't matter how big or how small. Judas was trying to beat her out of the blessing. Judas was trying to tell her, you shouldn't have done that. You could look what else you could have done. Look how so many people you could have helped with that. And yet you're putting it on the feet of Jesus. Jesus deserves every blessing that we give him. There's not anything that we can do to repay him for what he did to us, but the little things that we do, he sees it. He loves it. He recognizes it. And in that case, he said, leave her alone. Happens all the time. Happens all the time in churches today. It happens everywhere. You know what? That's what's caused a lot of division in churches over the years. A lot. A lot of division, a lot of hardships, and a lot of hurt feelings over somebody criticizing somebody else's blessing. Whatever you do for the Lord, you do it for him, and it won't matter what anybody else in this room thinks. Me, Brother Kurt, all the way back in the back, Patrick, all the way over here on this side, and we won't care. If you're doing it for the Lord, it don't matter what I think.
Amen.
You do it for the Lord. How do we do that today? How do we do that today? You're sitting there and you're thinking like I thought when I first read this several years ago, when I first truly studied this piece of Scripture. Well, I can't do that. If Jesus were sitting right here, I would do that. I would take the perfume that I have, or cologne, or whatever it was costly, and I pour it on his feet. And I don't have a whole lot of hair, but I would do that if I could. How do you do that today? What did Mary do? She took something very valuable to her, something very precious to her, something very, very personal to her, and she gave it away to Jesus. She set aside her personal gain. She could have took that, she could have sold it. Judas said, you could have made the poor with that. You know what else she could have done? She could have fed herself a long time with that too. But she decided not to. She gave it to Jesus. She humbled herself. Humble in today's society seems to be a dirty word, doesn't it? Humble seems to be a word that we don't use very often. We exercise a lot of pride. We exercise a lot of gumption. We exercise a lot of go-to. But humble, we don't exercise a lot. Humble yourself. Jesus talks about that a lot. The Bible talks about that a lot. Humble yourself. She humbled herself before Jesus. You know, we sitting here this morning and we think, well, how can I do that? I can't answer that for you. Sitting right here right now, I can't answer that for you because it's different for everyone. We all lead different lives. We all lead different lives. But the first thing that I would suggest that you do is I want you to think right now, what is most precious in your life? I'm not talking about family. Take the people out of it. Family is a gift from God. Take family out of it. Now I'd die for my children. I'd fight a running sawmill for my kids and my wife. We would all do that. That's a no-brainer. I'm talking about non-family, non-church. What is most important to you in your life?
Jesus Christ.
What can you not live without? Not church, not family, but something that, what is in your life that you have, that you do. Maybe it's an organization you belong to. Maybe it's something that you do for fun or a hobby aside from work. Maybe it is work. What do you invest most of your time in? What do you have pride in? What do you take joy in? And how are you using it to fulfill God's promise? Think about it for just a minute. Whatever you have, He gave it to you. Think about that for just a second. Whatever you have, He gave it to you. If it is your job, He gave you the ability to get up every morning and go there. He gave you the car to get there, and He gave you the brains to do it with. If you work from home, we have some very successful people in here that work from home, right? He gave you the computer to do it with. The technology, the ability, and the family support that you need to be able to do that. How are you honoring Jesus with what He's given you? How are you honoring Jesus with what He's given you? If you have hobbies or interests that take up a great deal of your time, that's wonderful. That's great. You should get out and enjoy it. And if you have the ability and the absolute confidence in your salvation to do so, go do it. How are you going to honor God through it? How are you going to honor God through it? But if you're using it as a replacement for time that needs to be spent with the Lord, or as an excuse to stay away from the Lord, or as an opportunity not to grow with Christ, then it's bringing you no gain. Earthly gain, maybe. Spiritual gain, no. Mary took the things that was most important to her, and she said, here you go. I'm going to wipe the feet of Jesus with this. We would all do the same thing, but you think about what you have. What's your bottle of perfume? What is the thing that is most expensive to you? And I'm not talking about money-wise. What is the thing that you have a lot invested in? Why is it still sitting on the shelf? Is it sitting on the shelf, or are you using it for Jesus Christ? See, Jesus is selfish. God is a selfish God, and I say that because He is. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. He loves me, but He wants all of me. He doesn't just want a piece of me. He wants all of me. He wants every part of me. He wants my mind. He wants my heart. He wants my family. He wants my finances. He wants my job. He wants to be in every piece of what you do. He's not content with just a part of it. Mary humbled herself at the feet of Jesus, and she gave Him all that she had. Talked about this in other Gospels. Remember the story about the lady that brought her 2 pence? And all these people were bringing in and giving lots of sums of money and offering to the Lord, and this lady that brought her 2 pence, and what did Jesus say about her? She's given more than any of you, because that's all she had to give. Are you giving everything you have to the Lord? And a lot of us truly could say, no, we're not, right now. You know, this is not going to be an overnight transformation. My Bible tells me that He is the potter and I'm the clay. And if I'm sitting on the wheel just spinning around this old world and spinning around this globe, and I'm not letting Him form me and mold me, then I'm not going to be of any use to anybody, because I can't hold His blessings, and if I have no form, I can't pour them out on other people. Think about that on the potter's wheel. If you are an old lump of clay just sitting there spinning around with God's blessing, and you're just sitting there on His wheel, and you're not letting Him touch you, you're not letting Him pull and push and mold and form you into what that He has you, what in His mind He wants you to be, and you're just sitting there. You're not benefiting Him, you're certainly not benefiting you. You're not benefiting anybody around you either. You got to be willing to let Him mold you and form you. My father-in-law, he does pottery a lot, and it never ceases to amaze me. We'll go down there and all that he has lined up on the wall. And I honestly, I love him to death, but I didn't think he had it in him. I didn't think he had the patience. But when he started this, but you'd be surprised at what he makes, and he sits for hours at a time. If you're not where you think you need to be with God right now, that's okay. But are you letting Him work on you? Maybe you're not ready to break open the perfume and pour it on His feet, but are you at least thinking about it? Being a Christian is a process. It is a lifelong process. Sister Janet said right after she sung, the older I get, the sweeter He is and the better He is to me. Right? It's a process. You get saved and that's just the beginning. You got to let Him pull and prod and poke, but you have to let Him do it. You got to let Him do it. Because if you don't, you know, I wouldn't want to go to heaven like that. I wouldn't want to go to heaven like that. I want to go to heaven. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know what Jesus would say to me. Enter in, you good and faithful servant. He says, you good and faithful over a few things. If you're saved, I'll make you ruler over many. I want to hear that. But if God gave me the opportunity to grow and I didn't, I don't want to just skid the skin of my teeth. I want to get there and feel like I belong. Right? And maybe that's the human in me. Maybe that's the part in me that thinks along that line and thinks about that. But I want to go to heaven and feel like I belong. Yes, you belong because you're a child of God, but I want to work for it. We're not earning it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, but I want to get to heaven and I want to feel like I've done something for the Lord. Like I've done something that there's a reward in it. We had a little girl that came to soccer, and I'll end with this. Came to soccer. I coached soccer one year. Go ahead and laugh. Go ahead. Thank you. Marla says I did a good job. She wasn't even there. I heard that you did a good job. We'll go with that. Had a little girl come in. She played a couple minutes of the game. Something I found pretty admirable about her dad. 2 minutes of one game. And we went to the banquet that they had. And we were handing out trophies, and she was there with our team. And of course, they're participation trophies. I know, but they were, Audrey was 3. So bear with me here, okay? Let's not get on that debate. So we got down to him, and she had her jersey on. She was standing there in line with her team, and I got down to her, and her dad was standing there, and he said, "Please don't give her one of those." I said, "Okay." And I honored that, and we went on. And I asked him a few minutes later, I said, "Can I ask why?" And he said, "Well, for one, we don't do participation trophies in our home. And for two, yeah, she got her jersey. Because we just moved here, she got the jersey, and we're proud of that. We appreciate that, but she didn't really do anything in those 2 minutes but run up and down the field." Now, that's his prerogative, but I thought about that, and that stuck with me. I don't want to go to heaven with the jersey on just because I ran up and down the field a couple years. I want to go to heaven, and I want to get my crown of righteousness, and I want to hear Jesus say, "Enter in, you good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things," and I want to know what those few things are. I want to know, like I know my name. Yes, through your power, Lord, I did this. Through your power, God, I did this. Through your blessing, Lord, I humbled myself and I did that. Through your blessing, Lord, I humbled myself and said no to the world, and whatever the world thought about me, I didn't care. Whatever Judas said about me, I didn't care. I did that. Can you say that this morning? If you're lost, you can't. If you're lost, you can't say that. If you're lost, you don't have a dog in this fight. Speaking to brothers and sisters this morning, mostly. If you're lost this morning and you're here for a couple reasons. One, you were probably poked or prodded to get here, and that's okay. We want every warm body we can get. Or two, you're here because you're under conviction. Conviction will get you to hell as quick as anything else. Salvation will get you to heaven. What Larry said in his testimony is as true as anything you've heard here today. Why are you waiting? Why are you waiting? If you're a Christian here this morning and you're thinking about that next step, God's been pulling and poking and prodding you, do it. Speak. Humble yourself and serve. Whatever the case may be, if God has been doing that to you, what's holding you back? What's holding you back? Judas? Husband, a wife? Yourself? What's holding you back? Come on, let's get a song. You have to give yourself to Jesus, fully and wholly. You don't want part of it. What's holding you back? When you get to heaven and you bow before the throne, conviction and well I'm into, God doesn't accept those. The only thing that God accepts is the blood of His Son that covers your soul. Profess salvation. That's what gets you into heaven. Are you going to be married? After you get salvation, you've got to figure out if you're going to be a Mary or if you're going to be a Judas. Which one you're going to be. Altar's open this morning. 368 at the bottom. Stand with me if you would. Some of you may have this morning thought in your mind, Jesus has rallied in your mind and your heart, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do that next step. I'm going to go that next round of Satan, and I'm going to defeat him. I'm going to go that extra mile. I'm going to do whatever God's having me to do, and you're fine right there. Let me tell you, when you walk out those doors, Satan, he's waiting right up there. Judas is waiting out there, and they're waiting. They're going to tell you, nope. Well, don't do that yet. Don't do this. just don't do that. You have an opportunity here to come up and pray with brothers and sisters and to make an open commitment to Jesus that, yes, I want to change. Or, yes, Lord, I need you. And that's what this is. It's in a profession of doing anything wrong. It's a profession of victory over Satan. Saying, yes, I'm ready to go on. I'm ready to pour out what God has given me. We're going to sing one more verse. And if you've been humble this morning, I want you to come pray with us.
Nothing but the blood of Jesus for my cleansing. This my plea. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus.
All right. It's a good place to be here this morning. If you all have finished tonight to be. Went over a little bit this morning. That's to make up for the past couple Sundays we missed. But just expect that till we get our time made up. So we do in the education system, so that's what we have to do here. Just kidding. That's right. Got to get our instructional hours in, people. If you all don't mind, Larry, Wendy, could we pray with you all?